Tomorrow.
Whenever you're ready, Lee.
Okay, you, non-conference out of the way, how much have you really been paying attention to the rest of the conference now that it's here? Or do you now kind of speed up and it's not a crash course, but now is when you really start diving into what they've done and what they're capable of, starting with tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, especially the early season games in conference play, right? You don't have any conference games to really look at where they're playing other opponents within the A10, and so you're basing your evaluations on other teams that they've played. And sometimes there's a common opponent every now and then that pops up, sometimes there's not. And you just kind of have to go on what you're seeing, at the time. But as you begin to get deeper into conference, now it's like you're scouting two teams at once and you're seeing two teams play, all the time. So it becomes a little bit easier. Hence the reason that, teams know one another so well. If you play them twice, then, you have a good feel because you've seen them live at that point. So it's what makes conference play fun. We're excited to be, starting out in it now, and obviously we've got a really tough opponent in our first game.
Have you ever played against Mark or the Bonnies?
Yes, when I was an assistant at Charlotte, we played them a few times. I'm trying to think outside of that. Maybe Virginia Tech one time? I can't remember. Yeah.
Is this his team that he has this year? The saying is he does more with less than just about anybody in the country. Do you see that out of this year's team?
Yeah, I mean, I think every year, he certainly, is one of the better coaches in the country, year in and year out. They're right there. And, this particular team, has weapons inside, weapons outside. They can shoot behind the arc. They can score inside and demand a double or demand attention. And so, it's a well-balanced team. Defensively, they're always going to be tough and physical, and they're going to play the game the right way, and you're going to have to beat them.
Now that you've had a couple of games with Joe and Sean, how's the rotation coming? It seems like the second half, especially the other night, is getting real close to what you guys envisioned when the season started without the injuries. Is that right? Fair?
I think we're still working through it. Yeah, quite honestly. I mean, certainly, each game, has a life of its own, right? It calls for different things, and lineups, can be different at times, based on the opponent that you're playing. Gardner Webb, played a very small lineup, right? At times, they did have one center in there most of the time, but the first sub they didn't. All of a sudden they had five small guys out there, small relative guards basically, and so all of a sudden Firm's guarding a guard, and so we had to adjust, to that, and I think for us that could be one of the strengths of this team. We'll see how it plays out, but the versatility to be able to play bigger lineups, smaller lineups, big on the wing, smaller on the wing, better scoring, lineups, switching lineups. We've got some options there as long as everybody stays where they're at now.
Has anything really surprised you over the last couple of games since this team has been back to full strength, and what have you learned about the group with the pieces finally all fitting together?
I mean, not really. I mean, in terms of surprising me, I think nothing's really surprised me because I see them every day, right? I'm in practice with them every day, and you always wonder how they're going to perform, in games, but we've been pleased to, having Sean back out there now and seeing his level of comfort increase. Certainly was a positive. Getting Joe out there and the same deal, and then the other guys' comfort level, as well. Max certainly, is playing good basketball on both sides of the ball now. His defense has really picked up. Which is, what we saw more of last year. I hadn't seen it as much this year, and I think part of it is he's getting less attention on offense. Not that people aren't worried about him, but he's got other, a guy like Sean who's a veteran out there with him, Zeb, J-Nell, Joe, guys that can put it in the basket if you leave him. And then he's not having to play as many minutes. His minutes have been cut just a little bit, so now he's got more energy to give us what we need.
Is that one of the best games that you've seen from Sean over the course of his career high the other day. Obviously, it seemed like he got to a pretty high level pretty quick after returning.
Yeah, I mean the second half certainly, and I know he did well in the first half too. But yeah, it happened pretty quick. I mean he's played in some big games, so I mean I'd have to really go back and think about that. But he definitely had a great game the other night.
Do those two guys, I don't even know if you know this, but have those two guys been kind of, do the other players kind of go to them because they know you? I mean, they came with you from Utah State, so I don't know if anybody goes to them and says, you know, how come we're doing this? And then they're kind of like a sounding board. Are they kind of assistants on the floor because they're familiar with you and what you want to see and what you're looking for, and how much do they bring their teammates along to what you're envisioning for everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly some of that, you know, that goes on naturally, whether it's, you know, at the apartments or whether it's actually in game or in practice. You know, there's certain times where these guys they've been through it, you know, with us and our staff, so they understand kind of how we want to play and different, you know, things, different challenges call for different reactions, responses, and you know, I think certainly, you know, Sean was a captain for us last year at Utah State, and he had, you know, 3 other really, you know, veteran guys, you know, with him as well that were captains, and Max, you know, was jumping into it, you know, this year. It was his first year doing it. Same with Zeb, and so. You know, I think now having Sean back out there is really helpful, you know, for them, the others, especially the younger players. Like you know, Sean mentors Mike Bell, you know, Joe's really good, you know, with Fats and some of the other guys. You know, Max is quiet, you know, but at the same time, you know, he's in games and in practice when things are happening, you know, he certainly is somebody that they look to.
How much of a learning curve is there, and I know it's different now than it was several years ago, but how much of a learning curve will it be for you and your staff going through your first 8-10?
Yeah, it always is. Yeah, it always is, and you learn more and more each game. You know, certainly our first year in the Mountain West, or in you know, the America East, or even in, you know, when I was at Lenore-Ryan, you know, that league was excellent. You know, ton of great teams and great coaches in each of those leagues, and so, you know, leagues generally sometimes have a style, right? You know, they have a style that you would say, okay, well, this league's a little bit slower, right, than in more ball control. This league over here is a little bit, oh my gosh, they're playing fast. You know, when I coached at Lenore-Ryan, it was like we had 4 teams that averaged 90, you know, that season, and so transition defense and getting back, and you know, it was like every night. Like if you weren't on it, like you could get blown out quickly. I think we had 3 or 4. You know, I guess it was 4. You know, highest scoring teams in the country. You know, top 10 or something like that. I mean, it was crazy. And so, you know, we'll see how the A10 shakes out this year. You have some coaches that have been around for a little bit, right? That you kind of have, not to say that they don't change. We all change. We all evolve and try to adjust to the team that we have that particular year. But then there's some things that, you know, when you're playing this coach's team, you know you're going to have to, you know, there's some non-negotiables that they're all about, right? And so, you know, I think it'll be fun for us as coaches to kind of go through it. But you know, it's not about us, you know, it's about these players, you know, and it's about their experience and their time, you know, to do it. And certainly I'm excited for this group, you know, this particular group to go on this path.
You have your first 2 at home, right? How beneficial is that? And I know you want, every time you're home it's great, but
yeah,
to start a new conference with your first 2 here.
Yeah, no, it's great. You know, we always love playing in the Siegel. You know, we have the best fans in the country and support system here in place, and so to be able to play here in front of our fans in the opener is going to be it's going to be fun. It should be electric. It's a late night game, so and it's the first one, so we're excited, you know, to share the court with St. Bonaventure.
Have you seen a comparable opponent at all this year with some experiences maybe that you can draw on that show you some similar things and similar challenges that Bonaventure will?
Oh, Bonaventure?
Mhm.
I'm trying to think about that. That's a good question. Teams that we've played. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one right off the top.
Has it affected this team developmentally at all? Do you think not having a true road game yet? I know that's an anomalous thing scheduling
Time will
wise.
tell. We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, we're heading out there in a week, right? We'll see how it shakes out. But you know, our guys they're excited to play. You know, and I think we performed pretty well. You know, down in Orlando, relatively speaking. You know, we had our moments down there where we played exceptional ball, and then we had some where it got away from us. And certainly can learn from that. You know, last year's team at Utah State, we had multiple neutral games, and we had one true road game, and that was an OT game that we ended up pulling out. But you know, I mean, it's just a matter of taking each game as it comes, and when you play on the road, you've got to be tough and understand that. You know, I mean, VCU's always been hunted, right? And we've got to make sure that we're in attack mode and we have a toughness about us, as we enter conference play.
Not that this team got down when they were 4-5, but over the last few weeks, you've won 4 in a row. You've returned 2 really key players. Have you seen the morale and the belief boost a little bit headed into conference play?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that we noticed. My brother was here for our practices, after we lost to Norfolk State and then Memphis after that tough loss. I mean that could have sent us in a lot of different directions, right? And the mood of the team was evident, after that game. The positivity was still there. The work and the energy and the practices was there. It's not to say that we haven't had one bad practice. We certainly have. You're not going to be perfect, but at the same time, been really impressed with the mood of the group. And yeah, certainly, when you add Joe back like that, he's naturally an energetic guy. When you add a veteran back like Sean, that's a positive thing too that can give your team a jolt. But ultimately, you have to play well and really put those pieces together, and that's what we're working on trying to do, trying to get a little bit better every day when we go in there to practice and get ready for these next opponents that we're going to have.
Also, guys?
Yep.